Hi, welcome to Buffzone. My name's Kyle Ringo. This is Ryan Thorburn. We cover University of Colorado athletics for the Daily Camera newspaper. Here to talk a little bit of men's basketball today. It's the middle of February, and we're going to talk about March Madness, of all things. Ryan, I guess the first thing is everybody's wondering out there, will the Buffs be a part of March Madness this year, or is the NIT in their future?
It depends what you define as March Madness. I think they're going to be in the March Madness conversation and very relevant because I think they're going to beat Utah this Saturday. They beat them by 40 in Boulder. I think they'll find a way to squeak out a road win. It won't be pretty, but they will win this game, I believe, if they're serious about this March Madness stuff. So they beat Utah, and then we know what they do at home. They have Stanford and Cal at home. I think they go ahead and complete the perfect home season in Pac-12 play. So all of a sudden you're in first place going into March, and then you're, finish up early March at Oregon State. That's where it gets a little tricky. But I think, to me, that's March Madness. They're going to be in first place in the BCS conference going into March.
All right. I can agree with almost all of that. And you mentioned that when they go to Oregon, it gets a little tricky, and I'll be a little bit more blunt about it. When they go to Oregon, that's when they fall on their face and this whole thing comes apart and they end up in the NIT, because the Buffs haven't proven to me or anybody else that they can win a tough road game this year. We were just discussing this before we started here, and their best road win of the year, I mean, name it. They don't have one. They don't have a good road win. I guess if you really were pressed to name their best road win of the year, or even if you throw in the neutral conference game against Western Michigan back at the beginning of the year, the best road win would have to be the most recent one, and that was at Arizona State. And, I mean, Arizona State's not that good of a basketball team. So if that's what you're bragging about in terms of your road resume, then Joe Lunardi from ESPN, when it comes to bracketology and breaking this all down and setting up that 68-team field, he's going to have a field day picking apart the Buffs. They don't have the track record right now, and those two games in Oregon are key to them wanting or being able to do anything in March Madness.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, their road wins are overtime at Air Force, which is already fired its coach and is going to finish second to last in the Mountain West, if not last, with Boise State. They also beat USC, which is one of probably the worst team from a BCS conference this year, and then Arizona State is their marquee road win. So am I going to go out ahead and say they're going to beat Oregon and Eugene and Oregon State and Corvallis and get into the NCAA tournament? No. I see them probably losing both those games. But this team was picked to tie for 10th with Washington State before the season. We all know who they lost, Alec Burks, and great senior class. And I still think even with those two losses at the end of the year, and Oregon State's a very winnable game. I mean, they could win that game. They're going to finish in the top 4 in this conference, and that's huge because at the Pac-12 tournament you get a bye. You'll play on Thursday against a team that has played already on Wednesday. You should have an edge there. You should win that game. All of a sudden, you're a couple wins away from the NCAA tournament. And, even if CU were to get into the championship game, I think they'd be considered heavily for an at-large bid, given the finish to the season. But that's all you can ask. That's March Madness to me. They're going to be in position. They'll have as good a chance as anyone to win the Pac-12 tournament if they finish in the top 4, which I think they will. So, to me, that's a great story, even if they don't make it to the NCAA tournament, based on who they were replacing and kind of the newness of the team.
I would have to say that, Tad Boyle has done a great job coaching this team. By anybody's judgment, you lose a guy like Alec Burks, you lose a guy like Corey Higgins, Levi Knudsen, Marcus Releverd, and you add some youth to the program. You endure what you endured with the whole Damian Kane situation, and you managed to produce what is looking like the first back-to-back 20-win seasons in the program's history. Put yourself at least in the conversation for March Madness, the NCAA tournament. I think that's a heck of a job by Tad Boyle, but the way this is all setting up and the fact that everybody nationally all year long has viewed the Pac-12 as a weak league, I don't see the Buffs, making it into the tournament ultimately. The only way they do, I think, is if they, win out down the stretch in the regular season, have a good tournament, and get to the point where the selections are being made with 23, 24 victories on their resume. Something like that might get them in there. Or, winning the tournament outright would obviously get them in there. But, those two games in Oregon and then the Pac-12 tournament are huge for this team if they're going to make it. And I just don't see it because, like I said, the national perception of the Pac-12 is that it's not a very good league this year.
It's not. I think Cal is probably the only team that could get an at-large bid at this point, although if you look at the schedules of the top 5 teams, including CU, there's a chance for all of them to finish relatively strong. I think Arizona could play their way into an at-large, potentially, maybe Washington if they win out. But, the fact remains this league is still wide open and is going to be all the way till that last game. And I think if you're a CU fan, that's all you could hope for, is they have as good a chance as the other 4 vying for this. I would throw UCLA into the mix at the Pac-12 tournament. They've been putting all their eggs in that basket since the conference started. But, usually at the Big 12 tournament, CU has no chance. They never won it. They got to the semis last year. I mean, it's going to be Kansas. It's going to be, maybe a K-State here and there. It's going to be Texas. And you got to love this as a CU fan, that this league, the parity right now is there, and you're going to be rebuilding on the same track as a lot of the other programs with your recruiting class coming in. So this is going to continue, with Tad Boyle. Every year they're going to be in the mix here. So I think moving to the Pac-12 is really exciting for basketball, and I think it's going to be a great finish.
Yeah. So is Colorado a basketball school now? Is that what you're saying?
Based on results, it is, yes.
It's getting there, yeah.
Sad but true, but it's, I think it's good. I think it can be both. I think it can be both. I mean, you see it here and there. I think over the years, Utah has been both, and there's other examples where it's kind of balanced. I think, fan-wise, it's always going to be a football school, but I like this balance that we're headed towards where, CU's main teams are more interesting from September to March instead of September to November.
Yeah, that's true. It definitely has to be both. I mean, this athletic department can't exist on the same plane. It does have the Pac-12 money now that it's going to be getting, and that'll certainly help. But it can't exist on the same plane that it has for so long without a quality football program and without that program starting to win more games more often than it has recently. So I would agree with you. It can be both, and I think it has to be both. I mean, the football program has to get turned around and start being nationally relevant again. We need to be having these conversations about what bowl the Buffs are going to be in mid-November instead of waiting until, mid-February, early March to be talking about any kind of relevant postseason. So anyway, the Buffs play at Utah this Saturday, and then kind of a dead week here this week with just the one game. But then we'll be back next week, and we'll talk about Cal and Stanford and wrapping up the regular season.